Welcome back, folks. We've got Fladervy versus Millay here for you in our Celeste Any Percent League. I'm Electric, and I'm really hyped to calm this match. This will be a big one, especially for Millay. If he wants to be in playoff contention, he needs to take this win. But Flad, meanwhile, wanting desperately to hold onto this third place spot going into these playoffs, will also really want to win here. As we can see from the stats, Millay down in 11th place. So he really needs to take a win here. Has had some rough matchups, a lot of losses, but at least many of them have been close enough to net him some decent points. And meanwhile, Fladervy in third place, the same type of record as Marlin and TGH. And he's also really desperately looking for a win. Chai Kitty chomping at his heels right now with 494 points. So let's see what this match has in store for us. We got them ready to go. Millay coming on in, a little bit late on the sync, but we'll get these players synced back up in the prologue right here. So let's see what this race ultimately has in store. Flad seems to, I mean, he's unquestionably a top level player, but I think his biggest obstacle is really the mentality and recovering from mistakes. It seems that when he makes some somewhat major mistakes, they tend to snowball into truly real major mistakes. Let's see what happens now in Forsaken City. Seems to be good movement. Millay taking that alternate route there. Looks like saving a little bit of time over Flad's route through that room. Ooh, Flad having a little bit of trouble setting up for that bounce. Millay having to take a little bit of extra time on that platform. But advancing very nicely through the stage regardless. Let's see how these last couple of rooms go. These can tend to be the more deadly rooms here. Millay missing the ledge there, so that's going to give Flad back the lead. So you're going into the spike jump here. Both of them getting it, or rather a wall bounce right over spikes. Millay having to fall all the way back down just to make sure he has enough room here in order to make this final strat here. So losing about a second and a half, 2 seconds over Flad's final time here. 137 versus 138. As both players now move on into Old Site. Ultimately, you don't expect the game to be won or lost within these first couple of stages. The difficulty really gets ramped up when they go into Resort. Nice movement all the way to the mirror room here. Both of them landing that little strat to get you inside the dream block right after the cutscene skip. So pretty clean movement so far from both players. Nothing really major happening so far. Nice movement from both players through these dream blocks in the first battle and chase. And Millay opting, both players not opting to thread the needle, opting instead to make sure to beat battling to that hole there. Millay having a bit of an issue here, having to wait out the battle and cycle here before he goes through the final key block. So now Flad with a pretty confident few seconds of a lead. Millay not able to get into this dream block here, losing even more time here. As Flad now advances into the awake section. Flad's movement looking really, really fresh throughout here. Maintaining a lot of speed. Losing a little bit of it there, but overall not too shabby at all. Millay's going to have a lot to answer for through this section. About as clean from both sides, but as you can see, already an 8-second lead developing in Flad's favor. As we move on into Resort, it's kind of interesting how short the first two stages are, and then Resort just slams into you with being about like twice as long, I think. And that stage length and the difficulty increase just kind of continues throughout the rest of the game. Nice movement from Flad so far. Millay also advancing really nicely throughout the first key area. Oh, but Flad taking a death to this Dust Bunny at the end of this room. Managed to avoid him this time. I think he actually kind of tried to play that dash a little bit safer to make sure that he was going to avoid him. Oh, and Millay dashing up a little bit too early, so he gets hit by that Dust Bunny on the end of its cycle. Fortunate dust deaths from both players here. We move on to some of the later rooms in the resort. Nice huge mess movement from Flad here. Oh, Millay having a little bit of a mess up there. Again, just I think that was an upright where he wanted an up dash. What? Oh, Flad runs into that bunny at the very, very start of this room here. Makes it through the death cycle pretty cleanly though. Moving right on along now. Very, very nice movement throughout these sections. Not really having the issues in the previous sections at least. Flad finishing up with bookcases. Gonna go ahead and go down to the towel section. Millay just behind. Some of these rooms can have really, really tight cycles, so let's see if Flad can account for that. Nice avoiding that first bunny there. Ooh, and very, very tight movement throughout that section. Millay trying to match here. And he does. Very, very nice movement from both players. So now we're approaching Demo Dash. Let's see what these guys can do, and if one of them decides to go for checkpointless, maybe. That extra little cheeky bit of time save. So if anyone's newer to watching Celeste running, it's gonna look like they're just dashing right through a wall of dust, but in reality, the hitbox doesn't quite correlate with the visual wall. And so there's a tiny gap that's the exact height of Madeline's crouched height that is in the middle of this wall. Vlad's going to go ahead and take the checkpoint here for safety, and he gets through very, very nicely. And so what these runners are doing with this wall grab and the quick jump there is they're lining themselves up to get that pixel-perfect dash directly through that very tiny gap in the wall. And by taking that initial checkpoint there, if they happen to fail, it's only a couple seconds lost. But if they fail without taking the checkpoint, the time loss is much, much more massive. Both in the Oshiro chase section, everything in this game just has to chase you at least once. Both pulling out some pretty nice movement. Interestingly, it looks like Vlad actually has the stereoscopic effects, or whatever the option's called. I think stroboscopic. Doesn't have those disabled, so it visually looks a bit neater, but it can be a bit harder to run through these sections with those effects on, with how they distort the screen. Okay, 7:48 from Flad. Let's see Millay's final time here. 7:58. The lead has extended to about 10 seconds. Millay in a bit of a dire position now going into the later game. These tend to be the sections that Flad can shine very heavily. Real pros play with screen shake. Yeah, I mean, it makes the game look nicer for the viewers. Why wouldn't you do it? Millay having a bit of an issue with this movement here, as we can see Flad taking that much more cleanly with the dash right over that little piece of land in the middle of the lake. Oh, Flad taking a death on the spikes in this room. And some nice Archie movement in this room. Get out those Archie emotes if you got them. Yeah, this game has an insanely high skill ceiling, and it's amazing to see people get close to actually hitting it. Like, this game is very, very tight at this level. Also, thank you so much, Mr. Panda95, for the tier 1 sub. Can we get some GSA fire in the chat? And speaking of fire, both these guys on fire with their movement throughout Golden Ridge. If you've only played this casually but not speedrun, you probably remember just how difficult the wind is to deal with. Oh, Millay not quite able to reach the bubble here in this room. Meanwhile, Flat, I think the dash just didn't come out on that. Nice movement here throughout this room. Pretty good recovery from both runners. Yeah, even in speedruns, the wind can be kind of hard to deal with, but once you've run the game as long as these two have, it's a lot easier to manage. Millay, tried for that key skip, was just a little bit too high. And this time around, let's see how he's able to do it. He's able to make the skip just fine this time. That was a very, very costly death for Millay. I don't think any of Flad's deaths, or even if you combine a couple of his deaths, I don't think any combination would be quite as much as that one death from Millay. Flad working his way through the snowballs section now. If you're slightly off of your normal cycle here, sometimes the snowballs can do exactly what they just did to Millay, just completely body you for no great reason. Nice movement from Flad. Finishing up with a 10:30. That's a really, really nice ridge time. Not quite the greatest ever, but certainly nothing to scoff at. Millay, meanwhile, with an 11:01 as his final ridge time. So Flad's going to be working his way into the Mirror Temple. And another point for our new Celeste viewers, if you complete the B side of a chapter, the next chapter will unlock, even if you have never completed the A side to that chapter. In most cases, this doesn't matter because the B side is buried so deep in the level that grabbing it would probably waste time, even though they're fairly short. But in this level, we have a skip that actually makes the B side considerably faster than trying to complete the A side all the way through. So this initial movement here, these players are advancing towards the tape in the A side, and then they're just going to immediately return to the map. But first, the depths corner boost, and it's good from Fladervy. The very, very nice yeet, fully executed. Let's see what Millay can do with it. He's got a lot of momentum here. The double yeet, somewhat rare occurrence at times. But glad to see that it worked out for both players, at least. So that's a 109 tape. That's a really, really nice tape grab time. And so now Vlad's going to be working his way into the B side of Mirror Temple here. So Millay's probably going to be looking at it like a 110, 111. Yeah, 110. So not much worse off than Vlad, honestly. Okay, so coming up in this room is, or rather, one of the next rooms is this big skip that I mentioned. So normally, you can either enter this room from the left side or the right side. This top side, with that one-way wall, you're not supposed to be able to re-enter from, but this trick Bub's drop that Vlad just did made him re-enter the room from that upper entrance. And the game just goes ahead and puts you on the right side entrance. Not sure how it used to work, but I believe with the modern patch that that behavior is actually hard-coded for sure into the game, where either re-entering the room from the upper or the right-hand entrance will respawn you at the right-hand entrance on a reset. And so that saves, I believe, like close to 30 seconds due to all the backtracking that cuts out that you'd normally have to do with an orb to get through that spike tunnel. And that was really the discovery that made 5B super, super viable for speedruns. It made it the pretty much standard for high-level runs. So it's really nice to see both of them landing that first try. That wall jump that you have to do in the downward dash in order to cancel your momentum is very, very precise. I believe you only have a few frames, maybe even just a couple frames to actually hit that wall bounce when you advance to the upper screen. So let's see how their 5B movement looks after this. This movement can be a little bit finicky at times. Both of them seem to be managing pretty well. Oh, Vlad, that was such a cool strat there. Diving right under that Seeker. Very, very nice movement from both of these runners in the Crystal Theo section here. Now we advance into the impossible room on Vlad's side. Millay getting through the gauntlet pretty confidently. Very, very nice movement from both. So Millay exiting with a 14:41, meanwhile Vlad with a 14:14 entering Reflection. So this race pretty decently in Vlad's favor, but anything could happen throughout Reflection and Summit. If Millay has an especially strong late game here, he could actually come out on top. Leg skip coming out from Vlad, very clean. Oh. Okay, Vlad with some nice movement there. I think there was a little bit of a bobble there, but could have just been my eyes. Vlad having a little bit of trouble with that Kevin block section too. Millay getting very, very high momentum there and not quite able to do anything with it. Just diving right underneath that breakable brick. Nice bumper movement from Vlad. As he advances deeper into the bumper section and gets close to the battle and fight. Millay having a little bit of an issue with that bumper, but making it work. Get some nice bumper movement from Flad as he advances ever closer to the battle and fight here. Millay still with some considerable time to make up, but Flad doesn't seem to be budging an inch on his mistakes yet. So we're back up. Give us just a moment. The game feeds will be back up momentarily. So sorry about the delay. The restreamers had some computer issues. So we'll be right back in a moment. How's everyone in chat doing? Looks like Aaron's doing well with all of those RPG emotes. And so it looks like we're almost back here. So sorry about the delay. 3,000 bits from Twitch ads? How? How do you do that? I've never gotten more than like 4 for an ad. I don't understand that. Yeah, now they won't even show up for me. Like, anytime I try, they just say nothing's available. John T really wants your business. Yeah, they really want you to grab one of those hackable tractors. All right, we got Flad's game feedback now in the middle of the battle and fight here. We should have Millay's back up momentarily. Gonna, if it's not already up, there's probably a resync happening in the back. We got it back up and fully resynced for you guys. So both of them in the midst of this fight. Millay a pretty considerable number of screens back. This Flad is going to be approaching some of these harder spike fall rooms here. One small slip up in some of these rooms can cost tons of time. Flad finishing out though very, very cleanly. Let's see what his final time's going to end up being here. Millay approaching that text screen with battling as well. So Flad has a pretty considerable advantage, but it's certainly not totally over for Millay. Summit is a very precise, difficult chapter, and a lot can and sometimes will go wrong. Flad's pulling out a very, very nice chapter 6 time, though. See, he's going to finish on out with a 1952. Yeah, sub 20 time is just exceptional. pretty nice intro movement from Flad. Meanwhile, Millay is going to be finishing out about 40 seconds back or so. Millay also getting some pretty decent intro movement here as Flad moves through 500 meter. Aaron. Alright, Flad now in 1,000 meter as Millay starts working his way into 500. Oh, takes a death on these spikes here. It wasn't Flad the one that called out Phoenix for that? I'm pretty sure he was, or at least one of the first ones that didn't really believe the run was real. Oh, Millay just taking death after death in 500 meter here. Letting Flad just propel himself further and further ahead. Such clean movement with these Dream Hypers. Nice movement throughout 1,500 from Flad so far. Millay's also getting some pretty great Dream Block movement here. Alright, so Millay pretty much entering this section right as Flad finishes it. Got some substantial ground to cover, but it could definitely happen, and 2,000 meters is really one of the first spots where that could be likely. Flad is just popping off at the moment. Millay taking another death here in 1,500. Just keeps slowing himself down a little and little each time. Oh, Flad goes for the bound under the terrain, but doesn't quite make it connect. And another death here. And get the upward dash where he wanted it to. But he does get the bound this time around. Nice movement from Flad throughout that room. Definitely seems to have recovered from that mistake, or those couple of mistakes in that earlier room. So let's see if Millay can maybe save some time in that room, and Flad would potentially drop off a little bit more up in 2,500 or on Summit itself. Flad taking Oh, sorry. I looked away for just a second and saw the death animation, so I figured something went wrong. But nope, just the standard key movement there. Only advancing through 2,000, but Vlad is not showing any signs of stopping here in 2,500. And 1 door skip, 2 door skip. Vlad validating his run. Who is winning? Fladervy, the player on the left side, is currently winning. Alright, so Millay entering that Mirror Temple revisit as Vlad is making his way up the summit climb now. Some very tricky, precise movement, but as long as Vlad can hold it together, he's pretty well going to guarantee this win, as well as that 3rd place spot in the standings going into the playoffs. So we'll see how this ends up here. Some nice movement going up here. These flags are where things can start to get really, really deadly just with the sheer number of spikes around. Millay advancing through flags himself now, but Vlad really just not giving him the room to breathe here. Nice keys here. Picking up that flag, closing off one of the longer flag climb sections. TGH coming hot in chat, saying he's going to ban everyone. I mean, that's one way to get a civil chat room. Millay seems to be picking up some decent steam, hasn't really made any major mistakes in the flags just yet. Vlad is nearing that crimson/burgundy flag at the very top. Pretty well going to seal off this win. He's at flag 4. Alright, Vlad now at the final flag. We're going to close off a very nice 28 1x. 28-10. Very, very nice race time. GG's to Vlad for an awesome race performance here. And GG's to Millay too for just keeping some pretty decent pace with such a dominant runner in this game. I mean, taking a death right after that flag. At least it didn't lose too much time. I mean, to be this close for this long against such a huge player in this game, it's really something. It definitely speaks to Millay's inherent skill level, but unfortunately, I think that will be it for Millay's playoff contention here. (28-10). Vlad showing us how exactly all those times looked. Some pretty decent times throughout. Mirror Temple really went pretty smoothly for him. 3:41, it's not a bad time at all for a race. Millay is now approaching that upper flag. Gonna be finishing probably a minute and a half, minute 40 behind. Yeah, about a minute 20. GG's to Millay for putting up a pretty nice fight against Vlad, but With that, Flad will be securing that third place spot going into the playoffs, and Millay, meanwhile, will unfortunately not be qualifying for the playoffs without that win. GG's to both of these runners on just a really, really nice race performance here. Don't go anywhere, folks, though. We've got tons more Celeste action coming right at you. Next up, we've got Archie Gang's Programmatic versus Sight. And then after that, Archie Boy versus Marlin. Both some pretty hot matchups, followed by Aurora Das versus M Sushi, and then closing out the night with Black Pear versus TGH. So got a lot of races coming up, some pretty hot matchups. I think that Aurora Dash to M Sushi match is going to be super, super close. This will be a pretty wild one. For those not aware, some of our races are pre-recorded, and this was one of them, so we will not be having racer interviews after this. And that's also why the VLC logo just came up there. It still happened in the same constraints as a live race. So the runners still met up at the same time and did a no reset against each other. But because we have our races for certain games always on certain days and certain blocks, sometimes runners can't make it to those blocks, so they have to pre-record their race earlier on in the week. So it gives the runners actually a lot more flexibility of when exactly they want to choose to race. But with that, I'll be out for now. I'm Electric, and it's been a pleasure watching this race with you. Sorry about those technical difficulties, but we'll be right back with that next race in just a few minutes. So peace out, guys. Stick around.